Hello, this is Jimmy Licangoko again, broadcasting live from Tahanam village in Paranaque. The topic I have chosen for today is my private meeting with former President Ferdinand Marcos, the father of the present president, the 17th president of the Philippines. I was thinking of not talking about this because it was a private meeting, but I kept that promise until he died in 1989. President Marcos called for me in 1980, 1982 in Malacanang Palace for a private meeting, and was told that this is confidential, and I kept that until he died in 1989. I never told anybody about this except for very few friends. But now, actually, there was nothing very confidential about things that we talked about, things that many people already know, but some that most people don't know, which I think is now part of history. And so I think I can freely talk about them. There's nothing wrong with it. And nothing really that confidential. Okay, it happened in 1982, to Sunday. I was not at home. My wife received a call from Malacanang, from the office of the Minister of Public Information, uh, under Minister Greg Sandania office, and asking for me. And my wife, it was a Sunday, and my wife said I was not at home. I was out, and they asked when I will be back, and she says she doesn't know. And so they called back several times and said that for me to call them back, gave several numbers that I should call when I come back. So when I arrived at 6 o'clock in the evening, my wife told me about it. And I said, why would Malacanang call me? I'm nobody. I'm nobody. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a politician. I don't have any part in government. I have no interest in government affairs. And so I thought it was a joke or a hoax. So I didn't return the call of the president of the Philippines because I thought it was a joke. At 7 o'clock, they called again. This time I was able to talk to the secretary of Greg Sandania, and then later to Greg Sandania himself, who confirmed that I was being invited. Well, someone really is the word for it, to Malacanang, and the next day, Monday, because that was supposed to be an official work day, but they couldn't get me on Sunday. So I said, Monday at 9 o'clock, the study room, Malacanang, be there, and you be alone. So my wife and I got worried. That time it was still martial law. And if you get called to Malacanang or to Kamkrame or elsewhere, Port Bonifacio, you sometimes do not come back alive. So we were very apprehensive why Malacanang would call me. There was nobody, really nobody. So I looked into my previous writing. I have already written 2 books, but it's about the faith healers of the Philippines. And I write about things that are paranormal, parapsychological, psychic matters, strange events, but nothing about politics. I am not really interested in writing about politics or talking about it. I leave it to the politicians to do that. So my interests were lay on in about the mind, the powers of the mind, about achieving what you want, and things like that. And I couldn't find anything that would be of interest, to Malacanang about what I'm writing about. There was nothing about politics there, or government. So the next day, I went alone as directed to Malacanang. But it was interesting because that Monday I was supposed to have a meeting with Secretary Blas Ople of the Department of Labor. I was then Assistant Vice President of a large rubber shoe manufacturing company. And I told my boss about it. And he said, but you have a meeting with Secretary Blas Ople. And I told him, well, there's a instruction for me to go to Malacanang. Which would you like me to go to Malacanang or to Secretary Ople? And okay, just go to Malacanang. He said, of course. What can he do? So one there, I was alone. I could not. I thought I could bring a tape recorder, but it was confiscated by the security people in the Malacanang. I could not bring anything metallic, not even a ball pen, not even a pen. In meeting with the president. And at 9 o'clock exactly, study room, uh, I was welcomed there by Greg Santana first, and then 9 o'clock, the President Marcos, came in and smiling, shook my hands. It was very weak at that time. I noticed very weak already. He was sick already at that time. And he thanked me for coming. So I said to myself, no, there is nothing bad, because he was smiling and was quite friendly. So I stayed I stayed in Malacanang for one whole day up to 8 o'clock in the evening. He didn't want me to leave. He didn't want to let me go. And what did we talk about? Oh, so many things, mainly about the psychic phenomena, mainly about paranormal, about faith healers of the Philippines, especially. And before I could ask him why he called me, Ferdinand Marcos said, I called you here because a lot of people have been asking me about our faith healers, psychic surgeons. And since I do not know much about the subject, I have to talk to somebody who knows. And I think it is you. So I thank the president for trusting me and for believing in me. And I was surprised, maybe because I have never met him before, but apparently he has investigated me or had me investigated. And so he knew about my work. And so we were there. We went to the study room of Malacanang, and he was asking me a lot of questions. And he asked me, why do I keep writing about the faith healers? What's my motive for writing about this subject? And I said, Mr. President, I want to know the truth about the faith healers of the Philippines. There's been a lot of criticism. There's been a lot of talk about it that is not true, that is deception, fraudulent, sleight of hand, and all that. And I wanted to know whether it's true or not. So I did a lot of research and studied this very thoroughly, much more than anybody here in the Philippines. Oh, that's good, he said to me. And what have you found out? I said, it's true. At least on the cases that I have examined, faith healing and psychic surgery is true. And, I don't know how many of you know this, that we are the only country in the entire world, the Filipinos, the only people in the entire world that can do barehanded psychic surgery. Now, what is psychic surgery? Is really a method of opening up the body of a patient with the bare hands and closing the incision, taking out tissues, diseased tissues, and then closing the incision without any trace of the process, and also without pain. Some little discomfort, but no pain. And in Brazil, which is the only country that does psychic surgery. The psychic surgeons use knives or scissors or some instruments, sometimes even a saw, lagari, to open up the body of a patient. Not for the Filipinos, they use hands. And that's why among the investigators from the West, our faith healers are the least credible to them because you cannot open the body with your bare hands. So they think, but actually they can. And it has been proven many times. Anyway, it's so unbelievable, so incredible that it's really takes a leap of faith to believe that it can be done. I have seen thousands. I have watched about 35 of the healers, and I never saw anyone doing trickery or doing sleight of hand. And I have about 5 cases where I have medical proof of the validity of it, healing or psychic surgery. So I was there talking about this, and I don't. Then at that time I didn't know why he was so curious about this. Well, I know he was already sick at the time, but I found out later it was not primarily for him that was called about these healers. It was something else. I will tell you later on that I found out. I didn't know at that time. Well, what happened was that we were talking like we were old friends. I the first time I had met the president, but we were talking like we were good friends. I was told about this by a fortune teller that I will meet the reincarnation of Ramses II in this lifetime. Well, before Ramses II, according to this psychic, banished me from Egypt because I stole the staff of life, which only a high priest could use in order to revive the girl I fell in love with during that time. She died riding a chariot. She fell from a chariot and died. And because of my love, according to this fortune teller, for this girl, I stole the staff of life. We know the staff of life is a staff. It's a pole that has an ankh cross. What's an ankh cross? Wait a minute, let me see. I have an ankh cross here. Okay, this is the ankh. This is an ankh cross. And which this what is on top of that staff of life. That staff of life is magical. It has powers of healing and reviving the dead, but it can only be used by the high priest. So according to this fortune teller, I stole that staff of life and revived the girl. That was during the time of Ramses II, and Ramses II banished me from the two of us out of Egypt. And then this this woman, this fortune teller, said, "Don't worry. In this lifetime, you're going to meet Ramses II again, and this time your meeting will be a pleasant one." So I went out of that fortune teller's house, not believing any word she said, because I didn't believe in reincarnation at that time, and I didn't believe so much in fortune tellers. So I took it like with a grain of salt, a lot of grain of salt, and that ended it. That was 1970, about 1975, 76, or no, wait a minute. I'm trying to recall. I was working then with the rubber world. It's no longer existing. That was 1980. Yes, that was about 1979 to 1982. So that was before, 2 years before. And 1982 was the time that President Marcos called for me to Malacanang. And I was there for 8 hours more in Malacanang, and he would first go out and do his duties as president, and then when he's not busy, he will come back to me and we resume talking. And he was telling me about his experiences in psychic phenomena, and he was telling me that he sometimes could see the ghost of the Barber of Quezon walking in Malacanang. Oh, by the way, Malacanang is known to have plenty of ghosts. Every president who stays there attests to this. from Marcos to Ninoy to the other president. They confirmed that there are ghosts there. Anyway, President Marcos told me that he could see the ghost of the Barber of Quezon. And one time, Amy and Irene, the daughters of President Marcos, saw the ghost and started running away in fear. And that evening, they slept in the room of Imelda and President Marcos. That's according to him. So it was along that line that we were talking, and he was wanted to find out who are the good healers that I can recommend. And I gave him actually two names, and they asked that they be summoned, whoever is available. And I was left. I was in Malacanang for the whole day. He didn't want me to leave until the faith healer has been found. It turned out that the healer that I recommended was in Pangasinan, and he was fetched by the PC, Philippine Constabulary. He was very afraid because it was the constabulary that tried to look for him. He thought he was being arrested. So he was in fear when he came at about 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. He was trembling with fear, and I told him, "Don't worry, there's nothing wrong, and just relax." And at that time, I didn't know why. It was later I found out that there was a king of Saudi Arabia who was very sick and needed immediately attention of our, not medical doctors, but wanted to be treated by a faith healer. So that's why he was looking for who would be the best. And by the way, that king, I found out later on, was healed of a very serious illness by the faith healer I recommended. And that is probably the reason why when OPEC, the oil exporting countries, started a cartel and raised the price of oil to high heavens, the Philippines was one of the countries that was given a concessionary price for oil, and people were wondering why. It was because our faith healer, one faith healer, cured the king. I think that's the reason. Of course, I don't know the actual reason, but I just made speculation. And so that was something that I knew much later on. Now, going back to the president's conversation with him, I was surprised at his knowledge of psychic phenomena. He was knowledgeable about the Russian experiments in psychic phenomena. He was very familiar with some of the machines, psychotronics machines, developed in Russia. So his knowledge is very profound, very extensive in this. And in an interview with an American magazine, he revealed that he believes in presentiments, he believes in clairvoyance, and that he can sometimes anticipate what's going to happen. Like he said that when the airplane carrying Bongbong Marcos was about to leave. Oh no, actually it was airborne already. He asked that the plane return to the airstrip and asked Bongbong to get out. Bongbong, of course, obeyed his father, and the plane took off, and it crashed. I think it killed everybody. How did he know? So this is one thing that it is in history. He was able to anticipate that. Well, according to the Bionic Boy, it was him who told the president that this airplane will crash and asked him to recall it. But according to Marcos, it was him. So anyway, I do not know what the truth is. But I believe that the president has certain powers of certain mental powers, psychic powers that most people have, but they don't use it. So the whole thing, the whole point in Malacanang I was surprised. I was told by the secretaries of Craig Santana that whenever I would appear on television, the president would watch and will not turn it off until I'm off the camera. And he has read one of my two books. He was quoting from them. I was surprised. Yes, eidetic memory. He has got photographic memory. He would just go over the book once and he will know the contents. Although he was sick already at the time, his mind was still very sharp. And that still could be seen in talking to him. So when people ask, some Americans and other investigators or historians were asking about this interest of Marcos in, about the paranormal, I could confirm that he has this interest, and he has this particular affinity for number seven. I think the plate number 77777 is reserved for him, and he would declare. He declared martial law on September 21. At least the date. Actually, it was actually 22 that, but he antedated it to 21 because of his particular affinity for the number 7. So 21 is a multiple of 7. So yun, there were many things that we talked about, and mainly on the subject of paranormal phenomena. And it's interesting that, when the president shows respect for what I was saying, because there was a time that there was an overseas call, and an assistant came to the room and holding the phone, and I was talking, and I was waiting for the president to stop me from talking so he could answer the phone. But he did not stop me from talking. He waited for me to stop, and at the time that he took the phone of that overseas call. So I was surprised about that. See, one of the things that I noticed with people with this intelligence, or this, when he respects you, they really show that they value your opinion. Same thing when I had this Taipan, I won't mention his name, who's very, very famous, very, very rich, multi-billionaire, who consulted me for something. And I noticed that what I'm saying, he would listen to very carefully. So this is one characteristic of highly intelligent people. When they respect you, they will obey. In fact, when the healer came and the president wanted him to heal the person in the Malacanang right away, I told the president, Mr. President, don't hurry him up, because he came from a very far place, and besides, he is emotionally afraid about this. So give him time to rest, give him time to meditate before you let him do the healing, because it will be disastrous if he does that in this condition of being agitated, emotional, all that. O ganun ba? Sabi sa akin eh, Presidente. Sabi ko, yes, give him some. And he obeyed. He did not ask the healer to heal right away. I make him feel comfortable first, and not rest, before he asked him to do the healing. And as I said, I understand that Saudi Arabian king got healed by this healer. So it was a very revealing meeting that I had with him. And going back to this fortune teller, in 1975, 76, somewhere around the times when I met, no, more 97, between 1975 and 1980, I think, when I met this fortune teller from Novaliches. She's dead now, so don't ask me her name or whether she can be rich. She died of cancer. One of the most outstanding psychics and clairvoyants I've ever met. And without knowing me, she talked about my past life as a priest, as a scribe in Egypt 3,500 years ago, during the time of Ramses II. And what happened is that I fell in love with a beautiful woman. who was of noble birth. I was not supposed to do that because I was a priest or a monk. And the one time when this woman was riding a chariot, which she said was being drawn by lions, I was surprised about that because I know that chariots are drawn by horses, but she said it was drawn by lions. Well, maybe. We don't know whether this is true. And when she fell from the chariot, died. And he said, because of your love for this woman, you stole the staff of life, which only the high priest could use. And I revived the girl. This is the Ankh cross on top of that staff of life. And this is a very powerful amulet, according to the Egyptian, this Ankh cross. Ankh, so how it's spelled. And so, because of that, we were banished by Ramses II. This fortune teller said, don't worry. In this lifetime, you're going to meet Ramses II again. And this time, your meeting will be a pleasant one. So I left that meeting with the psychic, which is without believing any word she said. Because I cannot prove anything that she said. So at that time, I was working at a large polyester manufacturing company in Santa Rosa, Laguna. It's no longer existing. That company no longer exists. And one time, there was an Australian foundry that was constructed right across our factory in Santa Rosa. And during the inauguration, no less than the president of the Philippines was asked to inaugurate, to be there. And all the officers of our company, from assistant vice president up to the chairman of the board, were invited to the inauguration. And so I was part of that group because I was assistant vice president at the time. And I was late because I was working on something. I did not go with the others, and so I was late. I went to the foundry. Later, I saw our officers and President Marcos drinking champagne and chatting. From afar, I could see them. And when I entered that hall, I started trembling. My hands started moving like this, uncontrollably. Fortunately, nobody saw me because everybody's attention was on the president. And I could not come near the president doing like this because it was something very embarrassing. So what I did, I left the room, I left the foundry, and went back to my room in the other on the other side of the street. So I kept wondering what made me react that way to President Marcos when I first saw him in person for the first time. So I said, maybe this fortune teller can tell me something. The next day I went there to the fortune teller's house and told her what happened. And she smiled and said, oh, it's only because of your memory. You just remember the man who banished you from Egypt 3,500 years ago. I said, what? You meant to tell me that Marcos was Ramses II, the Ramses the Great? Yes, but don't worry. She repeated this. In this lifetime, you're going to meet Ramses II again. And this time, your meeting will be a pleasant one. So I said, this woman is talking nonsense. I didn't believe any word that she said, so I left her. Forgot all about it. Until 1982, I received a call from Malacanang. President Marcos would like to see me. And it was a pleasant meeting. It was as if I was meeting an old friend. I forgot to ask him whether he knew that he was Ramses II. I, I didn't talk to him about that. I should have. And so, how do I explain this? How this is a coincidence? How did this woman know that we will meet again? Now, the past life of this man who was president of the Philippines. When this was told to somebody from Egypt, she was adamant in saying that could not be. It is Sadat, was Anwar Sadat, who was the prime minister, I think, of Egypt, who was Ramses II, not Marcos. Okay, I will not argue about that. It's something we cannot prove or disprove. So I left it at that without any argument. But it's really uncanny that this thing happened. Then later on, I began researching about reincarnation and began to remember part of my past lives and my affinity with Egypt. Why everything about Egypt, about the Middle East, not Middle East, specifically Mediterranean, Greece, its neighboring countries, Cyprus, particularly close to me. And the first novel I ever read, I don't read novels, but the first novel I read was a 400-page book, The Egyptian, by Mika Altari or something like that. I forgot exactly the name. Mika Altari, Alwari, which is a historical book about the Egyptian, which I was surprised. It's a 400-page book, and I don't read novels. And my affinity for Egypt was very strong. Everything Egyptian I like. I collect, papyrus paintings and artifacts from Egypt. And I find them to have very strong energy. When I do psychometry, I can psychometrize an object and tell something about the people who have held that object. That's psychometry. And these artifacts from Egypt are very strong. And I could identify with my eyes closed which objects came from Egypt and which ones from non-Egyptian source. I have been tested several times by people, and I could always distinguish which came from Egypt, which ones did not come from Egypt. So when I was I don't know, forgot what it was, what day it was when I was in Egypt. I felt at home in Cairo. I've been to Cairo. I've seen the pyramid. I even climbed outside the pyramid because you cannot go inside the pyramids. It was a huge, huge monument. I didn't expect that to be that huge. Because in pictures, you don't see the pyramid that high. No? But then when you're there, my goodness, it's about what, a 30 stories high, 40 stories high building. And I felt at home there. So this explains, sometimes when you feel like you have seen a place before, it's possible because you have been there before. You have lived there before. So these are one reason for deja vu. Why having seen an event like it was something familiar you have seen before. It was because you have been there before in that particular place. So what happened then during the meeting are those things that I told you about. And President asked me, do you speak Ilocano? I said, no, Mr. President. Oh, you should learn Ilocano because the people that you are investigating, the people you're writing about are from the Ilocos region in Pangasinan. He knew about this. Yes, they are mainly from Ilocos and Pangasinan. The faith healers to the Philippines come mainly from this region. We don't know why. But my theory is not because of Lemuria. Some people say it's because Lemuria is Pangasinan was a center of Lemurian civilization. I don't agree with that. The reason why there are many faith healers in Ilocos region and Pangasinan is because the Allan Kardec, the French, the French, what you call him, writer or the French researcher, wrote about the Spirit's book and the Medium's book, which became actually the Bible of Spiritists in Brazil, Argentina, and the Philippines. And this book of Allan Kardec has been translated into two languages in the Philippines, Pangasinan and Ilocano. They are not in Tagalog or in Visayas or other languages or Buanga. They are in only in Ilocano language, and that's why the Spiritist group grew around this area of the region. And that's the reason why there are many faith healers in that region and not in the Visayas and Mindanao. Not because it's about Lemurianos. It's because of this factor of Allan Kardec's book being translated into Ilocano and Pangasinan. So there you are. There are many things that we do not know, many things that are interesting that are hidden to us. And many people are not interested in this, in studying this. They criticize this, they condemn it without studying it. And this is what I cannot understand. I cannot really understand. The critics who criticize these paranormal events have never really examined what it is they're criticizing. I wasn't like that. I wanted to find out for myself. And I was able to my satisfaction. I was not interested in proving it to others. They can remain skeptical. It's okay with me. I have no problem with that because they do not know the truth. They have not even bothered to find out. You know, the Philippine Medical Association has condemned the Philippine faith healers as fraudulent. The Catholic Church condemned them as fraudulent. The Philippine Medical Association, the DOH, Department of Health, condemned faith healing as fraudulent without investigating, without really trying to investigate scientifically. But it's really quite a pity because I tell you, we are the only country in the world that can do barehanded psychosurgery. And now, where are they? They're almost totally gone. There are only about one or two faith healers I know of the old school who are still alive. I think three. One is John Labo, still alive. The other is Flor Acacia, who's very sick, and she stopped healing several years ago. And then Nore Tylo in Novaliches are still alive. Well, in Baguio, there's still Lawrence Capteng, but he was not one of the older ones during the time of Blanche and Tony Agpawa. They came in later. But these are only about two or three that I know still practicing. Most of them are dead. Some of the most powerful healers I've met are Virgilio Gutierrez, Juan Blanche, Benji Balacano, Gary Magno, and all the rest of the faith healers. Most of them are dead. So it's no longer the time to study faith healers in the Philippines. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about President Marcos meeting and how interested he is in paranormal phenomena. What a change from other people, of other presidents that we have had. Is President Marcos the reincarnation of Francis II? Asked Henry Bernardino. According to that faith, no, not faith, according to that clairvoyant and fortune teller from Novaliches, who's dead now, yes, she said that Marcos, President Marcos, the former president, is the reincarnation of Francis II. And the favorite concubine of Francis II was Nefertari. Who is Nefertari now? Imelda Marcos. And Imelda knew that she was Nefertari in the past life. And she visited the tomb of Nefertari when she was in Egypt and contributed, I think, 2,000, was it 200, 2 million, 2 million pesos or 2 million, I'm not so sure. It was a big amount. She donated to the restoration of the tomb of Nefertari. Yeah. So she knew about it. So there you are. Difficult to prove what I'm talking about. Now, who is the magical son of Ferdinand Senior? I don't know. I never, I didn't know he had a magical son or anything. I didn't know anything about it. Say, Paul Kaloy, there is something about Marcos about being a good visionary. Well, yes, he's clairvoyant. He was telling me that he was able to save Bongbong Marcos from death when the plane he was riding crashed. Before that, he asked the plane. He was already airborne when he asked the plane to come back to the airport and ask Bongbong Marcos to step out. And that plane crashed, killing everybody. So, what can you say about that? How did he know? Unless he is a visionary. And he admitted that he has some ability to sense the future. Well, probably didn't know what is going to happen to him in 1986 during the revolution. Or probably he knew, but he knew couldn't do anything about it. Okay, Paul. So that's my answer to your question. So, okay, now I don't think we have time. Well, let's see if there are some questions we can answer. Lee Abrigo. Does the Native American, do they do bare-handed operations? Is that what shamans do? No. Native Americans do not do bare-handed operations. Only Brazil and the Philippines are able to do psychic surgery. But in Brazil, they use knives. And I have been to Brazil. I have seen a Brazilian faith healer do psychic surgery. And they're not different from the psychic surgery in the hospital. The Filipinos use only their hands. So that's why investigators from the West are saying Filipino psychic surgeons, they're fraudulent because they don't believe you can open up the body with your bare hands. But they can do it. I have seen it. And I have proved 5 cases at least. In these 5 cases, I can bet you it's genuine. I cannot talk about the others because I have not investigated them. But this, I have 5 proofs. On my own, I was operated my prostate gland in 2002, and I have the ultrasound before and after. I have X-rays and laboratory analysis of tissues taken out. I have this about 5 cases that I can prove that they're genuine. The rest I cannot say anything about it, whether it's genuine or not, because I have not proven it to be whatever it is. Shamans, they don't do psychic surgery, but shamans are able to transform themselves into a spiritual being and able to retrieve the soul of an individual in the spirit world. The shamans are the intermediary between the spirit and the community and the people. There are shamans all over the world. Even in the Philippines, the psychic surgeons are shamans. Yes. And Max Bebot Tandan is asking, now he says, and that same Bionic Boy was kicked out when he told the president he would be overthrown. Yes, he was kicked out of Malacanang. Not only that, because he was very nosy. He was telling things that are not supposed to be told outside Malacanang. So the president and the men got mad at him, and he was booted out of Malacanang. That's true. I don't know what happened to him now. Some people are asking where he is. I don't know. He has disappeared. Whether he's still alive or not, I don't know. Perater comes. Come. A President Marcos Sr. past life was Ramses II. Can he be related to Rizal as one of his past life? I don't know. I don't have information about Jose Rizal. So I cannot answer that question. Joshua Montano, do you think Ferdinand Marcos knows that Bongbong will be a president someday? There was no indication, but I suppose they are wishing that they will continue to be in power. At least that much is clear. And it's a miracle, the fact that His father was booted out and thrown out of office by the Filipino people, and now the Filipino people embrace his son as the next president. So that's the kind of history we have. Gigi Sangel Villanueva, to this day, are there still psychic healers? Can people be trained to be psychic healers as a gift? As I said before, there are only few now practicing psychic surgery. Can they be trained? Yes. Most of these people who are psychic surgeons and faith healers, they were members of the Unión Espiritista Cristiana Unión Espiritista Cristiana de Filipinas, no? Of the Christian Spiritist Union of the Philippines, and they are trained there, but not all become psychic surgeons. They are trained to become mediums, to be able to speak to the spirit and get messages from the spirit world, to do magnetic healing and pranic healing. They can do this before they are able to do psychic surgery. And out of 100, only one or two will be given the gift. They said you don't choose to be a healer or psychic surgeon. The spirits choose you in 100 membership spiritist group. Perhaps only one or two will be given the gift of psychic surgery. But they all will learn magnetic healing or pranic healing or a laying on of hands and channeling the spirit world. That's the first step in becoming a healer, a psychic surgeon. Okay, Gigi. Hope that answers your question. Okay, any more questions? If not, then I think we can close this particular episode. And I'd like to invite you again to my upcoming to my upcoming seminars, and also every Monday or Tuesday at this time we'll try to broadcast, some subjects of interest. If you have any subject you have in mind to discuss in this forum, please say so. We can uh, try to accommodate you. You may call up our numbers, 8898 988 6292. 988 6292. Anyways, it will be there. No? I get my memory is not as good as before. 0998 988 6292. Okay, I got it. Anyway, it will be flashed here, the number to call for seminars, for books, for suggestions or comments. You can call that number or email me at jaimetzilicauco@yahoo.com. It's easy to remember. So it's now time to say goodbye. Thank you very, very much for watching, and see you again next week. It's Jimmy Licauco signing off. Inner Mind Live. Discuss crystals. Next time we will discuss crystals. Thank you for the suggestion, Gigi.